All right, we will be assuming we are live here. We've got Josh helping us out. So he's going to drop this link into chat shortly. And then we've got Hit the Ice with your old pal Emac. I am joining Nolan here.
What's happening?
Nolan double underscore Kelly.
Double underscore. I was last in line when they were handing out Twitter handles.
That's all right. I had to, you throw DFS on the end of anything and it works out.
Right?
That's
that's
my take on it. So, but in any event, here with one, Jake Hari is out on vacation, so I will be doing the shows with Nolan during the week. Here, we're going to go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Those are the largest game slates that we have. For those of you who don't know me, where have you been? I've been around DFS since darn near the tout side started, but I am your old pal Emac. So we've got me, who's not going to be carrying the water, as they say. That is going to, of course, be Nolan. But I have been playing fantasy hockey for over 20 years, season long, and I've been playing daily hockey long enough. I usually play about 60 or 70 slates a year. This year it's been down a little bit because I've picked up some other additional duties, so I've only played about 40 slates this year. But I kind of know what I'm doing. So that's all set there. And,
nice.
Let's jump in.
Before we get started, let's talk about the most important thing of the day. How are your brackets doing? You got a bracket?
Busted.
Still alive? Busted?
Oh, completely. I had
How could it be busted? It's all chalk.
Exactly. I had, who was the fifth seed? Auburn won by 1 point on day one, and then Wisconsin, and I have Auburn losing to Duke, and then Wisconsin's one of my Final Fours, and they lost early. So
right.
At that point, you're just like, yeah, it's
that's all right. You were bold. You went for the bold strategy. It looks like this wasn't the year to do that.
Yeah.
Also, if you have not been playing college basketball DFS using Osmo's projections, I highly recommend that you give it a shot. It is awesome. I think everyone has been making money. I entered like 20 lineups yesterday, and every single one of them cashed. So check those projections out. They usually drop the night before the games start on Thursday. They are amazing, and just build your lineups around like the point projections. So if you're a premium member, it's legit free money. The projections are so good, and they're so sharp. So even if you don't know, like I entered the first contest on the Thursday of NCAA. I just entered. I was like, wow, whatever. I'll punt $3. I don't know anything. Put in the top 10 or the top Osmo projections and finished third in a GPP. So yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That is outstanding. I'm jealous, and I will be joining in with all of this for sure.
Do it.
We've got, what do we have, like 9 games today?
Yeah, something like that, I think. Yeah, pretty big slate. DK has a really big contest out. Unfortunately, the prizing, I think, is roughly 85% of all the money goes to top 2 positions. So I don't know if I'm going to be playing in that one, but yeah, some other good contests. FanDuel always has their $4.44 center, so should be able to find something.
All right. Well, I'm going to honor the methodology here for Hit the Ice. We'll be sharing the lineups page or lineups builder on my screen. You'll see me glancing off here. I'll show you guys. I've got a whole set of notes here, so I'm going to be looking off on my other monitor. So I've put in a couple hours just to be able to keep up here with Nolan. I'm entered into my contest, and I really like on DK. I really like the tiers, Nolan. Not just my tiers when I lose, but the tiers contest, because, well, one of the things I found success with is people don't do line stacking on it. Now, it's not there every day, and you don't always get a complete line. But there's synergy, and it seems like most people are just taking best player in the different sections. So I have found a little bit of success in those. And even if because the first thing I do is I look through and say, what lines are there? Because they're not always going to be line ones. And if it's line one, there might be 1 or 2 players, or it might be one of the wings and then the defense, and they're not on the same power play. So it doesn't always work, but when you can find them, I've found some success there. And again, I've only played about 40 slates. So
yeah.
But
100%. It's funny that you mentioned that because I like looked at this price structure for on DK today and was like, nah, not going to do it. So I went directly to tiers, and so I actually asked Jake a little bit back because he's the stacking expert what the approach was for tiers, and it's basically the same thing as your other GPP lineups in hockey. You want to be stacking, right? So tonight, for example, tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 on DK, you can get Boston 1, you can get Calgary 1. There are some nice Toronto. You can get Hyman and Tavares together, and then you can kind of sprinkle in some other options as well if need be. But I guess the tiers are probably a little less sharp than the other contests. You're not going to get these pros going in 150 lineups. You're probably going to get a lot of inexperienced people who are just dabbling and want those constraints. So I've definitely seen a better ROI on my tiers lineups. So I'm going to try and do that a little bit more and focus on that as well. So maybe we can get into that a little later if we have time at the end of the show.
All right, let's hit this off here. We've got our first game. It's Florida at Toronto. For Florida, we do have their goalie confirmed. Now, how the heck does Samuel say his name here?
Montembeault.
Montembeault.
Yeah.
All right. So
those Quebec names are a little bit tough sometimes, for sure.
A little tricky, but he's definitely going to be in. You've got Frederick Anderson, who is expected to be the goalie, but that has not yet been confirmed. The money line has Florida at a minus 215. We've got sites were varying between 6 and 6.5 goals. For the over-under. Toronto's looking really good here. No surprise. I told Nolan when we go live and I start saying about the plays that I like as I tee them up, those will be the fish plays or the more popular plays. Not necessarily the fish plays, but the more popular. But if Anderson is starting, he's a nice tournament goalie. You could probably make an argument for him in cash, but we've got a couple guys I like better. Toronto 1 is relatively solid, but Toronto 2 is where I think that I'm going to be looking today, because you can get Austin Matthews, who's just absolutely phenomenal. You've got Nylander and Johnson, who are cheap. So all of a sudden you got a little bit of value here that can allow you to stack a second team.
100%. So this, I think, will probably be the most popular line of the night, if not the most, and one of the top 3. That's the only detriment against this line. They're 4th on the slate in scoring chances for. They are top 7, I think, in high danger chances for. Among any lines that have any kind of minutes together, they are the top line. And they're at a price that's basically the price of a filler stack. And then you have the added advantage of what looks to be Tavares matching up against the Barkov line. So you're probably going to get some weaker matchups against Florida 2 and Florida 3. So this is a really great spot for them. Toronto coming off basically what's been going on with Toronto is they're like, their offense is great. They're just not burying their chances. So this has been happening for a couple months now, where they've led the league in scoring chances for and high danger chances for, and they are not getting the results that they should. So Georgiev stopped, I think, 44 shots their last time out against the Rangers. So it's always a possibility in hockey that you're going to run into a hot goalie, or you're not going to bury your chances. But this seems like a really smash spot. I know that we've written them up in the power plays and the spotlight stacks, and this is a really good opportunity to game stack as well, because it's a pretty high total.
All right. Just keeping an eye on time. I know that we'll want to move a little more quickly to try to get this done in an hour or so. But is there anything else you want to hit on from Toronto here?
Someone's talking about Trump in the chat. This is hockey only here, for God's sakes. Sorry, what was the question, Emac?
If we got so many chats open, I was going to look there. Anything else here from Toronto?
So I think, Toronto 3 is also pretty cheap. I'm just going to take a quick look at their numbers here. I'm not so sure that they've been really overly good together. The lineup, or the ice time's pretty spread out for Toronto right now, with their top 3 lines getting about a 22 to 23% share lately. So you can kind of go to that third line as a bit of a pivot off some of these other lines. And they've been pretty decent together. They're averaging 12 high danger chances for. So, and then you've got Kadri on the power play 1. And then I think Marleau and Kapanen are on the power play 2. So I kind of like that. And then on the other side, I think like Florida 1 has just been really hot lately. They're just, they're averaging 11 high danger chances for, and but that number's been up in the last like 2 weeks to a month. They've just been burying their chances, and like, anytime you kind of get a line like that that's just spitting hot fire, you kind of got to think about them in a little bit of a different context and say maybe they're just confident, or maybe they're I don't know if I don't think they're really due for regression, but I'm going to have a few Florida 1 lineups as well, just because they generate chances. They are in a really good spot against Toronto in what should be a very high event game.
And then will it drive you? Will you be more enticed if it's not Anderson and goal for Toronto?
No, I don't think that really makes a difference to me. So what we basically had, like with Anderson, like he's been terrible lately. I'm just gonna look up his stats because I'm not sure if he was in net during their recent shutout here, but he's just been kind of up and down. Like he had a really bad run of it, but right before then he was extremely hot, right? So in his last 5 games, he's been pretty bad. Hasn't won. He's won one. Sorry, beat Philly, but he allowed 6 goals. But then in his games prior to that, he had a 945 save percentage over his past 3 or 4. So could just be something mechanical, could be bad luck, could be anything. Goalies can change it around like that. But I'm not like super fussed on getting him into my lineups. However, I will not be like targeting Florida solely based off the fact that he's had a few bad games in a row.
All right, let's get on to our next game here. That's going to be Buffalo at the Devils. This one is 5.5 total. We have slight home favorite for the Devils, but barely. Carter Hutton, we're still waiting on to see if he's going to be confirmed. Corey Schneider is in for the Devils. Snyder's one of the guys that I look to a lot. I don't particularly want him in this particular matchup, but I've always been fond of him at his different stops. And then Travis Zajac is a guy, I swear I have been playing almost the whole time I've been playing season-long hockey. He's one of my favorite streamers. So when I see him on line 1 at 3,900 on DraftKings, I have to say, is this the aging curve catching up with him? Or is that an actual okay bargain at that point?
You sound like me and my love of rostering Buffalo too. Watch out for Seth. He's going to make fun of you. You have a good football rivalry with Seth too. I like that. Yes. So yes, that's interesting call. Like basically even though like we see that Zajac is centering the Devils' top line, I'd say more de facto the Palmieri line is going to be their top line and certainly their top offensive line. So that's an interesting spot to target. You can see the double A grade there from Osimo for Hischier. On the top line, one of the advantages that you're going to have here is Blake Coleman is a game time decision for the Devils. With people not rostering Devils and it kind of having a pretty low implied total, what that means is you're going to get almost no ownership on Coleman. So if you want to use maybe 1 or 2 Devils 1 stacks in your lineup tonight, you're going to be massively over the weight on the field. They'll probably get a matchup against the Eichel line, which is, we don't really have enough numbers on them yet to say because they've just switched up their lines. So it's kind of tough. We have a really limited sample size. But yeah, I don't hate that call. I think it's a really cheap filler stack that will allow you to pay up for some of these more expensive lines or some of the more expensive defensemen on the slate as well.
All right, I had one good question I want to circle back for the viewers. I don't want you guys to think I'm dismissing Schneider because it is a reasonably good matchup. I generally play 3 or 4 goalies. I do the mass multi-entry low dollar stuff, but he'll be one of the guys that's in my pool. I have not run it yet, so I don't know how many lineups I'll get him on. Sometimes where the points break out, you get them guys a little bit more than expected, and other times, depending on where the other goalies are priced, all of a sudden these cheaper guys that you're like, well, he's kind of okay, make it so everything else works. So I think he has an intriguing price, favorable matchup. I'm just not doing cartwheels because I'm not overly excited by the Devils' offense, them backing him up. But what are your thoughts in the slate's rankings today with Schneider? Is he like your 3rd or 4th favorite all-around goalie?
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't. So, like, one of the things like I've learned from Jake, and I think from a lot of other pros, is I don't really put a lot of thought into goaltenders. Okay. Partly because I generally correlate goaltenders with my other stacks. So, to tonight. I think that's a pretty reasonable price, and he's got a decent shot at a win, about a 50-50 shot at a win. What I do look for if I am going to target specific goalies is just teams that are getting a lot of shots on net, so that they have some save chance opportunities. So I'm just going to take a quick look at the shots for over the last 10 games. So what we're seeing here, Buffalo is kind of middle of the pack, and but New Jersey, I think, has been pretty good at suppressing shots. Let's see here. So New Jersey also kind of middle of the pack for suppressing shots as well. So I think it's a decent play, especially that price point. I got no problem with it. I think if he fits into your lineups or your one or two New Jersey stacks, go for it. But yeah, we'll see. There might be better plays on the board.
All right, moving along here to Buffalo. I didn't have anybody that was really popping for me. I know a lot of times we'll look to Eichel and some of the other guys, but tonight because there are 9 games, I'm getting other plays that I like better.
Yeah, absolutely. The problem with Buffalo right now is just that the lines are so spread out. So now you have Eichel on the top line, and he is centering, I believe, Sheary and Nylander. So and then so basically you have Skinner, Eichel, and Reinhart are all split up, and they're all in the power play 1. So that just sort of takes any interest I would have from Buffalo away. I think if I had to pick one, I would probably go with Buffalo 1 or Buffalo 2. They're pretty cheap, and their Buffalo 2 all has pretty good grades, but I'm just not super excited about getting to the Sabres. I feel like even though the Devils are a bad team, they're starting to get a little bit healthier, and they've done a pretty good job of sort of limiting the pace and limiting the chances of opposition teams, despite their total lack of talent.
All right. Well, it did work out. You did get to mention Buffalo too. So
thank God. I can't go a day without mentioning them.
There we are. The next game we have is, let me scroll up to that, is Pittsburgh going into New York, take on the Rangers. Pittsburgh is a 185 money line favorite. We've got a 6 over under here. That's projected. All my sports blend together. A 6 projected goal total here amongst these two teams. Clearly, Pittsburgh's going to get the edge on that one. We know that Murray and Georgiev have both been confirmed, so we know the goalies. The New York 1 line is one that is interesting for me, so let's kind of start there. You've got Lemieux, I know that one, and then Vucevic and Zibanejad. Well, I wouldn't have got that one, but that's kind of an intriguing line here as well, because on DK 2,500 really for Lemieux. Not saying that's bad, but rarely. Make sure I'm on DraftKings pricing here. Usually, you don't get a guy on the top line that cheap, because that is allowing you to do a lot of other things with some of your other lines here. Nolan, what do you like about New York 1 and anything else from the Rangers?
Yeah, so I don't hate New York 1. I think, especially when you have a player like Zibanejad who just generates a lot of shots, that provides you with a pretty decent floor. I think that they're probably, if the last few games are any indication, they will probably go up a lot against the Crosby line, which should be a pretty tough matchup. I looked at the last couple games, and they're not quite hard matching, but they're just, let me pull up my thing here. I think they're both the top 2 lines will see a lot of Pittsburgh 1. So yeah, I think at that price they're a really good stack, and I think they're also correlated on the power play there. But I'm going to double check that really quickly. So yeah, I don't hate that at all. I do like the other side of this game as well. It's tough to tell, but all 3 of the top Rangers lines have been really bad since they've been put together. But that time that they've been put together includes a matchup against the Maple Leafs, who are one of the most dominant teams in the entire league. So the stats are skewed a bit. So I think that I'm leaning more towards the Pittsburgh side of the game. And just one note here as well, that Chris Letang is out, if you didn't already know that. So bump up Justin Schultz. I think he's a pretty good price, and he'll take over the power play 1 duties as well for Pittsburgh.
I'm making that little note myself right here.
Nice. Yeah, so the Rangers as well, in their last 10 games, they've played some good teams, but a lot of bad teams, the Devils, the Canucks, I think the Red Wings, and their scoring chances against have been steadily climbing. So they're right now in the top. They're 5th worst in the NHL in scoring chances against over their past 10. I think they have a really bad penalty kill, if memory serves. So it's definitely an intriguing spot to me to go to the other side of this game. I don't know how owned Pittsburgh 1 is going to be. Pittsburgh 1 also led all lines on this slate in 5-on-5 ice time last game with a 31% share. So this looks like a pretty smash spot for them. If Georgiev stands on his head, then yeah, sure, we might be looking at another 1-goal game or 2-goal game. But yeah, that's where I'm heading tonight. Rangers have the 6th worst PK in the entire NHL.
All right, talk to me about Pittsburgh 2. So would you go with the whole line for savings, or would you focus more just on McCann, who's in a pretty decent spot and price point as a one-off here?
Yeah, I definitely tend to stack. So if you're playing cash games, I think McCann's the other part about McCann. Like he's really good, but his price is probably a little bit inflated because he was playing with Crosby. And playing big minutes with Crosby for a couple games there before Rust came back. So I definitely prefer, like, that line together is pretty cheap. So you might as well just stack the entire line and hope they get a goal or two, which I don't hate at all. I think, let me just check their stats here though. There are averaging, they don't have good numbers in 32 minutes. They are only averaging 5 high danger chances 4 per 60 and 15 scoring chances 4. Not a very big sample size, but in 30 minutes, that's not nothing either. So might be something to steer clear of tonight. Actually, if you're worried at all about those recent 30-minute numbers, I might consider not starting them.
All right, good note there. And then just throwing out a Hornqvist or Pittsburgh 3 just because they've spread out their stars so much here.
Yeah, I always like Hornqvist. He was projected really well for Osmo and Jake at the beginning of the season. I don't know why his projection, he just really hasn't delivered as much recently. That line has been pretty decent. 14 high danger chances for, 30 scoring chances for in 100 minutes so far. So if you're looking for a line to go, I probably prefer going to Pittsburgh 3. You get Hornqvist on the power play 1 as well. So, but my favorite play on the night is definitely going to be Pittsburgh 1.
Okay. On to our next game here. Boston Bruins. We are expecting Tuukka Rask to be the goalie. Not yet confirmed. On the other side, we know that Andrei Vasilevsky, thank you, is...
Don't feel bad. We butcher names all the time on this list. So.
I've got no chance on
Cheadle's name. Cheadle.
Oh, so in any event, Tampa Bay... And this is actually a good game because you've got the Bruins who've been... frisky, and even over the last few years they've definitely been trending upwards after slumping the hell out of the better part of a decade. But you've got the Lightning, who just absolutely are scoring monsters, which is always intriguing. In this particular game, the only thing I'm looking at is Boston 1. Again, because this is a 9-gamer, I didn't really find anything that popped for me here. I definitely don't want to take Rask against the Lightning, but I didn't really get fired up to take some of the Lightning against him. It was kind of a weird conundrum. Any line changes, anything you want to call out specifically? Deeper in the analysis here.
Yeah, this game is actually looking like the Lightning have a 3.3 implied total, which isn't anything to sneeze at, but that's a lot lower than their usual total, right? I think that this game probably is going to be fairly defensive and probably have a pretty playoff atmosphere feel to it. Boston's all but clinched that second spot in their division. They're 19 points down from Tampa in the Atlantic, so they're probably really just playing to kind of finalize their second seed and get home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs. On the Tampa side, Jan Gord is out. He on the fourth line will be replaced by Ryan Callahan. And then as far as hard matching goes, I looked at a little bit of Tampa recently. They tend to use a lot of their third line matching up against top competition. So you're probably going to get a bump from that third line in terms of ice time tonight because we have a de facto top line in the Bruins. However, the struggles against the Bruins are well documented. Patrice Bergeron, one of the best centers in the league. It's kind of tough to go to either one of these lines tonight. For me, I'm actually just kind of staying away from this game, except for maybe some Charlie McAvoy shares, just because his ice time is up and Torrey Krug is still out, and McAvoy's price is down. So you're getting a $3,900 defenseman on DK for getting 23 minutes a game and power play one time. Even though it's a tough matchup against a really good penalty kill, I don't mind that play at sub 4K.
All right, let's head on to our next one here. And thank you, Eric S. The Erics have to stick together. I went to refresh to see if we had some new goalie confirmed, and it reset to FanDuel pricing. So I'm now back on DK pricing. I forgot that it goes back to the default and doesn't hold the setting here. So
it's funny, like how much. It's funny how much people prefer the DK side of things, eh? Like, who's playing? Do people predominantly play on FanDuel? Like, are you just all DK? Where does your money go normally?
I will play a little bit of football over on FanDuel. I will play baseball from time to time. I don't really like how they have everything correlated where you really need to double stack because they give more points for RBIs and runs proportionally than what DraftKings is doing. And I prefer the two pitchers. It makes things interesting. Now, that said, I love baseball so much that I'll play it on damn near any site. I work Yahoo in there as well. But for all the other sports, DK is my main focus. It's been 3 or 4 years since I've played hockey on FanDuel. It's just always been DK.
It's tough as well because, like, unless you're a pro, their main GPP contest is a $4.44. They don't have like the 2 contests split. So if you're playing up against Testosterone and I Slew For You and Osmo and all these other 150 lineup players on FanDuel, you can just go over to DraftKings and avoid a whole bunch of those guys and play in a $4 contest. So to me, that makes a hell of a lot more sense. I'm more of a DraftKings guy as well, but I totally agree with you. Dabble a little bit in the golf, though. I kind of think that's an interesting way to go, just because their ownership is so skewed.
Yeah, I did when it used to be like first 2 days, then the cut, and later, and you had to pick different players and all that. But I hadn't really gone back since then. I mostly just do DK, and I've only played one weekend of NASCAR, and I play relatively solid NASCAR on DK. So the one thing I do want to give props to FanDuel for is their 100-mans. The 3 max 100-mans, the things fill constantly. It's great. 25, like if you're playing in the $1, I think it's 15 or 20 or 25 to first, but that's a true 1% lineup. That same 1% lineup in even the single entry $1 or $2, you're gonna get 2x, maybe 3x your buy-in. Like, why would I do that? Why wouldn't I take 20x my buy-in for that? DraftKings has them. They don't fill as much, and DraftKings doesn't constantly spawn them. They put out 1 or 2 that are guaranteed, and then nobody really joins the ones that aren't guaranteed unless it's football. It's like
every set has its own weaknesses, eh?
Yeah,
funny.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the game here. But this is how you make money. These are the little things you can throw out. You guys know what Nolan and Jake are going to say, but a lot of you may not have heard what I've been doing. I've been doing this profitable 7 of my 8 years, and I'm off to a good start this year. So
nice.
Golden Knights, St. Louis. Premier teams last year. I don't know. I'm a Caps fan, so of course I'm going to be thinking of the Caps first and foremost. But with these 2 guys, this is another one where I didn't get a ton. So we know that Subban is going to be in goal for the Knights. I'm just scrolling to my page here because now I'm looking at my notes for Nashville. You've got St. Louis has Binnington, who has been confirmed. The only thing I've looked at here, and this is where I want your take, because I don't remember how – because I haven't played for a couple of weeks, how good the Knights defense has been, because you always want to look towards Tarasenko and Shen, and that top line is very, very interesting to me here for the Blues. But that's the only thing I got from this game. There's got to be something deeper. Has there been some line changes, anything shaking up? How are the Knights doing with their defenders, etc.?
Yeah, so one of the big things tonight is just that Max Pacioretty's out on that Vegas second line, which does hurt them a little bit. I mean, Alex Took is a pretty good replacement, but he is not as good as Pacioretty, I'd say. So that does weaken Vegas a little bit. We have basically a matchup against two of the hottest teams in the NHL right now. I'm also expecting this one to be a fairly defensive game, but the problem what you have with like rostering a Tarasenko in this kind of matchup is he's going up against two of the best lines in the NHL in terms of chance creation and high danger chance creation and Corsi. So this is a really it's kind of like one of those matchups that cancel each other out. So you have basically the biggest two has, since they've been put together without Pacioretty, has been probably the best line in hockey in terms of Corsi and scoring chances for. Their numbers are off the chart. And then you have Vegas 1 that's really heating up despite them just crashing against Detroit the other night and totally disappointing. So to me, I'm going to stay away again. The one play that I'm really targeting here is possibly St. Louis 2. The price point's still low. That line has been really good together. I'm going to give you some stats on it right now. Just give me one sec while I sort this out. And then the only other note I have on this game is that Colin Miller is back in for the Knights. And he is likely going to be playing on their second power play unit. So this St. Louis 2 line, since it's been put together, Jaden Schwartz, Oscar Sundqvist, David Perron, still pretty cheap. A couple nights ago, it was the Nuts line. David Perron had a hat trick. All three of the players really contributed. They are averaging 40 in 36 minutes. They're averaging 40 scoring chances for per 60 and 17 high danger chances for, which is among lines that have a minimum of 30 minutes. It is second best on the entire slate. So definitely something to consider tonight. All
right. Anything else from this matchup as we continue? We're finally into the 8 o'clock games at least.
We're getting there. We're plugging away. Yeah, I don't mind. I'm just looking up Peter Angelo's price here. He's kind of he was priced down a little bit recently. Yeah, so he's down to 5,300 on DK, but he has a pretty tough matchup. Kind of his shot generation has been going down the past few games. I think he's only got a few shots on net and not many more shots for. So not going to get back to Pietrangelo tonight, especially with 4 defensemen in really plus spots right at the top of the board.
All right, let's continue along here. Now we're going to get to the Pred versus the Wild here. We know that Saros and Dubnyk are going to be in goal. Dubnyk was kind of and this is, I agree with letting the MME kind of help pick my goalies here, but he's one of the guys I like a lot. He's been struggling somewhat, and this isn't the best matchup, but he always ends up on my short list. Nolan, should I be talked out of that? And then the one line I do like here is Minnesota 2, where we've got some savings. Let me make sure I'm on the right site here. But they were a little bit discounted here from their pricing. But that's really all I have from the Nashville, Minnesota side. I'm not as excited to go with the Smashville lines. The last couple of years I've really enjoyed going with either their power play 1 or power play 2, particularly at home, but not really excited in them this evening.
So you're looking to Dubnyk, did you say?
I am, and I think I need the cold bucket of reality here.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a contrarian play tonight. Nashville is still perceived as a solid team. They do generate a decent amount of shots. They're top 10 in the NHL, but Minnesota does a really good job of suppressing shots and a really good job of suppressing scoring chances. So I don't hate it tonight. The only problem I have with it is where do you go in Minnesota? So 2 notes I have for this game are that first, that Minnesota won. I sound like Perd Hapley. So the 2 notes I have are so Minnesota 1 moved Zucker up last game mid-game and took Matt Reed off that line with Stahl and I'm drawing a blank here. Fiala, yeah. Stahl and Fiala. So consider that. Look to the Minnesota Wild line rushes if you are going to go that route. And then the third line of Greenway, Cunnin, and Donato is reasonably priced. They've been pretty good together so far. So that is, if I was going to go to Dubnyk, I would probably pair them with Minnesota 3 and then just maybe do that a couple times. You don't really need much to get overweight. This isn't I don't think Osimo has him graded out particularly well as a goalie, but why don't we just double check? And just a note on that last game as well. The only AA graded goalie for Osimo tonight is Binnington. So something to consider. your boy Dubnyk gets a D grade.
It's bad grade. So
that's all you need to do to talk you off him. But don't be afraid to correlate if the time if you got some Minnesota 3.
All right. Now, is there revenge in hockey like there seemed to be in the other sports? Because Fiala spent a ton of years there in Nashville. Yeah. So I believe
the last time we had a narrative, the Nashville-Minnesota revenge game narrative, they actually played right after the trade deadline, I believe. I'm just going to look this up to make sure I'm not imagining things. And we were all in Granlund with the revenge narrative. And it was actually Kevin Fiala that had the revenge narrative game, and I think he had either 2 goals or 3 goals.
Oh boy,
that one. So revenge narratives go both ways. Maybe it's Granlund's turn tonight.
Since he's back at his old team, that's usually, isn't that how the rules break down? When you go to the city you used to be in, that's where you really feel it.
Right. Okay, maybe that's what we missed last time. So yeah, I'm all about a good revenge narrative. Granlund hasn't done much. These Minnesota Wild lines have just been, the Nashville lines have just been terrible lately. So yeah, he had 2 goals in that game in Nashville. So there you go. Yeah, revenge narrative. If that's your thing, go for it. Otherwise, the tough part about Nashville is, again, we have a situation where the top line has been split up on the power play. Mm-hmm. Nashville's power play has been among the worst in the NHL this season. So if I'm going to go to this game, I'm probably just going to take some Roman Josi shares. Might have a couple Nashville 1 because their underlying numbers at even strength are among lines that have a lot of minutes together. They are tops or like top 3 in the league. So in terms of scoring chance creation, so maybe they're due for a bounce back. The price is certainly down. We haven't seen Ryan Johansson priced this low all season. So you can get a really good bargain with him. And then I think Forsberg's under 6K and Arvidsson's only 6,200 on DK. So all in all for that line 12, you're looking at $16,000 for a Minnesota or for a Nashville 1 line. That's not bad. Unfortunately, it gets a pretty bad grade from Osimo just because Minnesota has been really good defensively. They rank 1st in the NHL in scoring chances allowed over the last 10 games. So not a great matchup for them, but you will definitely not have much ownership going to them if you want to go that route.
All right. And then last question, just to expand on Josi. Would he be a pivot away from Burns, or is Burns just still in a class unto himself? We haven't gotten to that game.
Oh, man. We're getting into the Burns talk, eh? So Burns has really disappointed everyone recently. I think it's Bobby. Oh my God, his handle's escaping me. Bobby Boom. Yeah, Bobby Boom has pointed out that he hasn't met value in like 15 straight games or something ridiculous, which is true. So, yeah, I'm still going to go back to Burns tonight.
You have to play Burns.
Yeah, I'm a believer. Giordano, great spot. Morgan Riley, great spot. So the great thing about Josi is that he's just going to be a pivot off these other guys. So you're looking at these top 3 defensemen on the slate. The highest price ones are going to get they're probably going to be the 3 highest owned defensemen on the slate by far. So Josi, decent matchup against Nashville, given that they give up the 22nd most fantasy points to defensemen. It's an interesting pivot for some maybe your chalkier lineups. That being said, he's not going to be one of my core plays tonight. I will be going with the chalk D.
Okay, and that's fair. I'm putting on a show there for chat. Giordano is the guy I really like tonight. We'll get to him in a minute. Yeah,
we are a Giordano and Burns show. Pretty much. That's all Jake, so I can't take credit for that.
Really?
His projections, just like I cannot remember a time when Giordano or Burns weren't the top guy on the slate. And Giordano is super hot right now in a plus matchup, so I'm going to be pressing the lock button, but we'll get to that later.
All right, I hadn't dove into our projections yet, so good to know. At least my notes here are somehow complicit with the Jake not being here. I'm filling it right, just marvelously here, seamlessly.
Big red circle around Burns and Giordano, and you're good to go for the rest of the week.
Oh goodness! All right. Anything else from this game here? You mentioned the Zucker and Matt Reed line change mid game. Is that a big concern?
No, I think I wouldn't actually go to Minnesota 1. I would just what I would do there is maybe use it as a leverage spot, because what happens in these situations, we've seen before, where our own, like one of our own site founders, Tom JK, has won GPPs based off of late breaking news and getting that late breaking news into your lineup, because what happens is people steer away from that combo. So if at 4:30 Pacific or 7:30 Eastern, half hour before the Minnesota game locks, you see that Zucker's up on that line, you're going to get a Zucker Stahl Fiala combo, fairly cheap, fairly reasonable price, bad matchup, but they will be sub 1% owned. So that's not bad leverage when you're looking at a 10,000 person GPP, right? So I tend to do that. I just put like one or two lineups will get you over the field. And then you can just kind of move on from there. And if it gets split up, it gets split up. And if it doesn't, you don't have to roster them at all.
Let's move along here to our next one. We've got Dallas at Winnipeg. We've got Winnipeg favored by 135 on the money line. We have a 5.5 projected goal total here. Confirmed goalies are Bishop and Hebuck. Is it Hebuck or Hellebuck? Hellebuck. There was a guy, I can't remember, in basketball, he played for Detroit, but pronounced a similar type name, Bikes is how it was pronounced, I believe.
Who is it?
I can't remember who it is, but for the NBA. Played last year or 2 years ago. But it was a unique way to say it, and I'm blanking on his first name. But in any event, this one is sort of interesting because we'll just call him Connor. We're on a first name basis. 2 shutouts in recent time. I was a little surprised that he got just a BC grade here. I mean, he is one of the more expensive guys, but is that like 800? The goalies seem like they're really priced tightly this year on DK. There's not a wide spread. Even the backups are up there. In years past, you were always looking, okay, who's getting the spot start, because it was an easy way to go. But clearly they've closed that loophole here. Oh, thank you, Alex. Osmo himself in chat. Dwight Bikes is what it was. So, or Dwayne maybe. Okay. But in any event, here we've got. Yeah, now I didn't know the big boss was watching me on the show here, but we've got a guy coming off 2 shutouts in his last 4 games. Dallas has been really hit or miss. I mean, the names are Radulov, Sagan, Ben. You know them, but they're so inconsistent that this feels like potentially a decent matchup here, but the price is a little high, and that's where I was starting to look at Dubnyk and some of those others. So just to complete my thought process of how I came around, but you've got, I mean, as you said, when goalies are in good form, standing on their head, all of that, that's when you want them, because you ride the hot hand. And how many times have we seen a goalie too just go on a run, or somebody stonewall the opponent for 2 rounds in the playoffs? It's just, that's the one thing that's always amazes me, is how sometimes goalies are just like, it's like they know what's coming for 2 weeks, and it's like, how the heck does that happen?
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, and that's one of those things that's really hard to quantify, because like, do you have a goalie that's on a hot streak, or has he been lucky? Like we generally don't rate Hellebuck as a great goalie. Like we're kind of like, he's one that we'll target, but your numbers are correct. Like his save percentage over his past 5 games is something in the 960s or 970s, and he's won 4 of those in a row. So on the flip side of that equation, you have Dallas, who has a pretty deadly top line. One of the notes I have for this game is that Sagan has been or Radulov is off the top line as of this morning skate. Dickinson is up on the top line with Jamie Benn. However, Dallas recently has just been basically putting that big 3 combo together either halfway through the second or in the third. So if you're rostering Dallas 1 tonight, you can probably confidently put Ben with Sagan and Radulov, hope for some power play correlation, and hope that they get put back together sooner rather than later. So Ben and Radulov, Sagan and Radulov all have the rank in the top 5 in the last 10 games in the NHL in high danger chances for and high danger and scoring chances for. This should be, but Dallas has been really good at limiting opposition chances, but Winnipeg, on the other hand, has really pronounced home road splits. They're just a much better team at home. So I'm kind of with you on this one. I think I'm on the Winnipeg side of things. You have this game, like I'm assuming it's going to be kind of on the defensive side, but it could go either way. I guess is what I'm saying. Like this could be a barn burner. It could be a nice spot to target Winnipeg one here. There are a lot of different ways to go if you're attacking this game for sure.
All right,
I definitely don't hate the Hellebuck with Winnipeg 1 or Hellebuck with Winnipeg 2. Kyle Connor was just recently named the second or the first star of the week, and that second line has had a lot of success recently. So if you want to stack up that second line, you can do that at a pretty decent discount, or you can get the price discount on Nikolai Ehlers, who's up with Wheeler and Connor, and that line has better numbers together than they did with Line A. So yeah, quite a few spots to target. I think that Winnipeg will probably go a little under-owned tonight just because you see that big red 5 and second and all these points allowed to Dallas, number 1 in points allowed to centers in the entire NHL. So that might be a nice pivot tonight if you wanted to get a line that's fairly matchup-proof in a less than ideal situation.
And one of the other things I tend to do a fair amount when I am playing Nolan is a lot of times I'll target the West Coast games just because that's when everything is settled down. I'm not doing baseball or basketball or whatever it is, and I can kind of focus in on things. And I think a lot of times people overlook, and this is long-range planning, not for tonight, but people overlook Dallas. They overlook Arizona. At home, people are drawn to play in San Jose. And when Dallas and Arizona are at home, they're better scoring teams. And they're low scoring teams. But that seems to be where you can get a little bit of an edge because nobody's on them with much fervor on the full slates. So that's one thing I throw out there. And another team that I swear to God never scores, but I wanted to go look at the rankings was Vancouver. The Canucks. Yeah. Sorry, isn't that your team? Not rubbing it in at all, but they're higher than I thought they were. They're 20 goals off the bottom or 30 goals off the bottom, and the Kings are worse than I thought. But the Ducks have been horrible this season. But in any event, you get a player like that. A lot of times we'll equate this to baseball, and we've got baseball coming up right around the corner. You get some of these pitchers that are in a situation that you think is bad, but you have to understand what is their baseline context. So everybody knows, if a pitcher's not in Coors Field, they've got a better chance of doing well. Or if a hitter's in Coors Field, and they're normally not, they got a better chance of doing well. You want to understand some of these home and road splits because they are pretty damn pronounced for these Western Conference teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, absolutely. Just something I've noticed from afar, macro level, is speaking in high generalities, but it's just something that has caught my eye over the last couple of years. And the other thing is when you get these showdown slates too, a lot of times people are like, this is original 6 or whatever. These are the better teams. And it's like, no, not always.
Anytime I try to get so caught up in that stuff, I just I have to stop and go back and just look at the lines, I think that's a really good way to kind of get your bearings again.
Yeah, and this is not just cramming these guys, but find their spots. Find, Colorado at home playing a team that's been on the road for 3 games, and this is their final one, and they're going to Colorado. I don't care if they had the night. It doesn't even have to be a back-to-back. I'm playing Colorado that night just because it more often than not seems to work out. But that's not a play Colorado every night. It's what's happened with their opponents and just larger trends. Anyway, sorry, didn't mean to go down a rabbit.
No, it's all good. So I looked into a little bit of hard matching as well for Winnipeg. I would expect that you're probably going to see Winnipeg 1 go up against Dallas 1. At least that's what they did last time. So that matchup kind of cancels each other out a little bit. Where I want to target Dallas is in this Dallas. Whoever's going to get matched up against this Dallas third line, who's going to see a lot of time against them. Because their numbers are pretty awful together, and that's the Cogliano, Como, and Faxa line. They're ranked near the bottom of the slate. So from that perspective, I think fitting in a Winnipeg 2 or a Winnipeg 3 is a bit of a flyer. I know someone in chat asked about that. That's a really cheap unknown flyer that you could pair with a higher price stack. But I think Winnipeg 2 here is going to be where I'm going to target just because I would expect them to get more of the depth of Dallas as opposed to the top line. And that depth of Dallas has been is pretty bad beyond their top line. So, that's where I'm looking. This game doesn't have a high total in spite of the fact that we think of it as probably being a bit more high scoring because of all the star power. And then on the other side, I think Trouba's not a bad play on defense. He is probably priced right about where he should be at this point, $5,600. He has 5.5, 6.5, 3, 5.5 points, and he's shooting a lot, and he's on the top power play, and he's going to get you 22 to 25 minutes.
All right, it's 2 games to
Talking
go.
a lot here. I'm sorry.
Oh no! This is what they want to hear. I'll chime in here and there, but the day. See, I can do the macro high level stuff, but this is DFS, daily fantasy sports. So we need you to do the heavy lifting here. The Kings and the Flames. So we're down to our last 2 games. So this is always a fun one. Calgary is one of my favorite teams. They have been over many years now. I used to always love to target their goalies on my season-long teams and stuff. So I had this irrational happiness that I can play someone like Mike Smith tonight. So we are paying a premium here, but where's the money line? They are that's the wrong one. 325 money line favorites. Yeah. The Flames are. That is like. You don't see that in baseball. You don't see that with goalies very often. And our next 2 we're going to talk about in Smith and if we get Martin Jones confirmed, he's confirmed. 365 or 380 depending on the site you go to. Nolan, these are wildly high. What does that do with regards to driving the masses on a goalie like this? Now we're paying fair prices for this, but those are eye-popping numbers. In baseball, we call them chalk donkeys. Is there the equivalent here in NHL? Does it really move the herd when you get
goaltenders? I would say there probably are some chalk goaltenders. I generally don't worry about goaltending ownership or goaltending matchups as much as I worry about, one, am I correlating them with a stack that's likely to go off so that they're likely to win? And 2, are they likely to see a lot of shots, right? So shots, because you're getting 0.2 for every shot, you need, unless you can target low totals, but the danger in targeting low totals is those teams often come against teams that don't shoot the puck a lot. And that means that your upside for that goalie is not as high as it should be. So here, for example, we have Mike Smith, who's the most expensive goalie on the slate, and he's facing the LA Kings, who
score the least.
What's that?
They second the least goals. LA Kings.
Yeah, least goals and the second least amount of shots in the entire NHL. So that doesn't really bode well for your chances tonight. And then you have the Flames, who do an excellent job of shot suppression. They allow the second least amount of shots in the NHL per game. So what that says to me is that it's a really safe play for cash games. You're probably going to get a win out of Mike Smith, but you need that shutout, or you need that 1 goal, maybe 25 save game in order for him to be among the top 3 or 4 goalies tonight. So what I prefer to do is if I'm rostering some Calgary stacks, I will just pivot off of Mike Smith and go to some goalies that I think will have a little bit of higher upside because their shot volume is going to be much higher.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And it was oh god, this is so long ago. I had to go look it up because I couldn't remember his name. I remembered Mika, but I couldn't remember how to say it.
Mika Koskinen.
Yes.
Kiprusoff,
who was the goalie
stud for 5 years.
Absolutely, and he was great. I'm looking. Oh, good God! That started in the 2003-2004 season.
So actually, I'm super bitter because there's a story that Brian Burke had a chance to trade for Kiprusoff, and we had Dan Kluche, who was the weakness of the West Coast Express Canucks, and he didn't do it or something. Something fell through, and anyways, Kiprusoff won a Vezina and carried the Flames to the finals. It was terrible.
He was just.
We hate the Flames out here, so
good. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, so as far as lines go tonight, I'm going to target. I was looking at, so basically what Calgary does at home when they put Frolik on the second line is that they hard match against the other team's top line. So Backlund is going to get a lot of minutes tonight. That Backlund lined up against the Kopitar line. The Kopitar line has been getting a ton of ice time lately. They led the Kings with 30% share recently. The Kings have been playing a little bit better, and their numbers defensively are not as good as we're accustomed to. So Kopitar has the rep of being one of the top 5 defensive centers in the league, but this season that line is giving up 25 scoring chances for, about 10 high danger chances for. So not great, not bad, certainly not matchup proof. But what you are getting is a matchup for Calgary 1 up against some of this LA depth. So the Kempe Toffoli line has been pretty good in limited minutes, but the Carter line has been really bad defensively. So what I'm kind of hoping for here, I'm going to be targeting I'm going to have some of both of these lines, but I like the price discount on Calgary 1 right now. Monahan at 6,200, Lindholm at 5,900. That's a really good bargain for this line, and they don't have to go up against Kopitar. So that's where I'm heading to mostly in this game. You're not going to catch anyone off guard with Calgary 1. They are going to be probably the second or first highest owned line of the night, but pair them up with Giordano and then go elsewhere. That's going to be probably my second or third highest owned line of the night.
Yeah, and Giordano is a 5-game point streak, so that's always fun.
Yeah, he's been amazing lately, and he's still the price still isn't up. I think one of the things that happens with DK, I don't know about FanDuel, is for whatever reason the defensemen just aren't priced where they should be, so that you get a little bit of a discount every time. So
it's like tight ends and centers in football and basketball.
Exactly. Yeah.
On DK.
So. Yeah. And they also have a really nice floor as well. So you want to be targeting guys. One of the tendencies I think of beginner players is to pay down at defense so you can fit two really good stacks. One of the things the pros do is they pay up at defense so they fit in one good stack and one low-owned stack. It creates a nice floor from your defense, and then also gives you some leverage by having a low-owned combo.
Gotcha. One question here that's coming up in chat. Would you go with Florida 1 over Calgary 1?
So the only reason I would go with Florida 1 is if I thought the ownership was way less. I like Calgary 1 more. They're both good. They're both good plays, but Florida 1 is more expensive than Calgary 1. Calgary 1 has a higher total. Calgary 1's at home. Calgary 1 probably in a better matchup because you're going to go. The Florida 1's going to hard match against the Tavares line, which is a pretty hard matchup because they are a pretty good line in their own right. So I would definitely go to Calgary, but the only reason to go to Florida is just they're going to be probably 1/3 the ownership. So if that's your thing, go for it. But I will have more Calgary.
Okay, and one follow-up question before we leave this. I know you were talking about Jeff Carter, but I was busy looking up goalies from 15 years ago, so I wasn't listening closely. I have him as a question mark. Is he someone you would punt with, or is this just not the best situation because the shot volume's not going to be there? Yeah, Carter.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually, Jeff Carter's always one of my favorite punt plays historically. Not this year as much, but historically, just because he's the kind of guy that kind of creates on his own and can shoot from nowhere. And so he's the perfect sort of one-off play that you want in your lineup, sort of like Evander Kane previous to this year, or Mike Hoffman or someone like that. So I don't have any problem if that's what you're doing. If you're going with a one-off, he scored in 2 straight, so he has some upside there. Maybe he's turning it around a little bit. I don't hate that as a one-off at all.
Yeah, and because I remember the years that they were doing so well, you'd always consider Kopitar and Carter, and when all those guys were together. And now it's wow, that's a cheap price. I know he's not on the top line, but he's on the power plays. Come on.
I know, right? And then the other flip side of this game, I didn't really mention it, but that Kopitar line, I said their ice time is just nuts right now. They've won 2 straight games. Kopitar got 25 minutes last time out against the Ducks. He's shooting the puck a lot. That's a pretty cheap price for them. No one is going to own them because it's a perceived really hard matchup against Calgary. So if you want to kind of pivot line tonight, I'm guessing they grade out pretty well for Osimo. I'll just take a quick look here. LA1, yeah, so B grade, A value. That's a nice pivot there if you want to game stack this or just throw in a line. We're kind of off LA1 this year for the most part, but there's some signs of life.
All right, and then now we are on our final game, the nightcap. We have the Red Wings visiting the San Jose Sharks. It's Bernier who is going to play in goalie. I had Jimmy Howard down, but we were waiting on confirmation. But I see it's Jonathan, and then Martin Jones, one of the great fantasy goalies that's there. But the Red Wings are just a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
For a franchise that has just been all dominate the the New England Patriots for so long. They've been in a pretty big slump the last few years. Craptastic goaltenders that have flamed out, picks that have just been ass, trades that you thought they were going to be okay, that they just got hammered on.
Yeah.
This is kind of like the Craig Smith thing, where is there going to be enough action to justify going with Jones tonight? I guess is an easier way to say it.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying there. Yeah, so Jones is one of these guys that he's really bad. So that's the only problem.
But he always ends up in my lineups, which is just, it's wild. But this is a high price tag.
It's a similar argument for as the one you would get for Smith, in that you have the Sharks who very quietly allow the least amount of shots in the NHL per game, and the Wings who rank in the top 5 for shots against. Thomas Vanek out in this one. Pavelski out for the Sharks. Carlson obviously out. So what we have here, I think, are 2 or 3 lines that you can really target if you want to get contrarian. The Detroit 1 line has been one that we've been on all year. Larkin, Manthan, Bertuzzi, they have really good numbers together. 30 scoring chances for, and 17 high danger chances for in 90 minutes so far. And that's something that if you wanted to kind of go with a little pivot line there, just like the LA Kings. And then on the Sharks side of things, you have the Nyquist, Couture, and Meyer line, which in limited minutes, 18 minutes, leads this entire slate in terms of high danger chances and scoring chances for. So 4.4 total for the Sharks. This is a smash spot for them. We've been getting burned by San Jose 1 recently. I'm still going to go back to them tonight. I hope that maybe people are a little scared off of them just because they haven't delivered. And then you could also go with the Sharks' second line of Ertl, Kane, and Donskoy, who has been pretty good as well, though the luster is off a little bit since a really hot start to their sort of second half of the season.
All right. Look at that. Relatively.
Burns, baby, Burns. Get that Burns in. Let's go. This is the game. The breakout game.
Yes. Well, we'll see. I hadn't realized that that just horrid streak of not performing well was so long. I dip in and out, so I don't get to see a lot of the consistency.
It's okay. It's good. You want to be there on the night that you want to get in before he gets hot, right? You want to be on the slate early, not the slate late.
Yes,
the slate late. I'm pot committed to this.
Yeah, gets that goal and 2 assists and 6 shots. That's the night you want him.
So you can stack up your San Jose 1, or you can just try and get a piece of this Sharks offense with a little Brent Burns in it. And I'm going to be targeting the Sharks tonight, and hoping that. Oh, just another note on hard matching, in case you're worried about the Couture line going up against the Larkin line. Had a look. Normally, the Sharks do use their first line against opposition top lines at home, or at least they did when Pavelski was on. Since Pavelski's been out, though, that's a little bit less clear. They don't seem to be hard matching as much. So San Jose 1 going to get a chance to go up against some of these Detroit depth lines, which are much, much weaker in my opinion, and that should up their value a little bit.
All right. With that, we are going to get on out of here. Oops, I keep forgetting I'm sharing that screen. This is again just my notes here. That's all. Nothing exciting to see. So I was trying to clear it so I could get to the other screen here. So we've got Hit the Ice is the promo code. All one word, gets you 50% off any Awesemo 1-month package. We mentioned that at the beginning of the show, mentioning it now. We're going to be on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday while Jake is away. I will be filling in, but fun show, and you guys are here to listen to Nolan, but I'll throw in a few oddball questions here and there that might provide a little bit different perspective of what's going on. So again, don't forget about the Tiers game and doing a little correlation there. You don't get it every day, and you don't always get the one you want, but not many people are doing it. So definitely check that out. Final thoughts before we get on out of here.
Let me, I like I can't talk right now. I'm just saying a bunch of words. I like 3 lines tonight. I think are the most going to be the most owned. You're going to have Toronto 2, Calgary 1, and San Jose 1. I would expect that's where a lot of the ownership is going to go. So if you are going to do that, don't be afraid to try and mix and match some lower owned lines to differentiate yourself. Maybe you take like a New Jersey 2 or something like that. So just be cognizant of ownership when you're stacking up those top lines tonight, because I think they're going to get a lot.
Excellent. All right. With that, gamers, we're going to get on out of here. Good luck.